what I found is that it's really important to people to have a way to fight their feelings, because we trust our feelings, and for the most part they tell us the truth. But this is a case where they're telling you something false. This is about literally seeing something that's not there, having a delusion, a hallucination. I became interested in anorexia when I had a client 25 years ago who came to me for help with her anorexia. She'd had it for about 5 years. And at that time, the diagnostic manual that psychiatrists and psychologists use defined anorexia as a refusal to eat. But my client really wanted to be well. She struggled to eat, but she told me, my body won't let me eat. I would eat if I could. And I puzzled about it, and at that time the explanations had to do with maybe a controlling mother, or a need for perfection, or some need for control herself. But we talked about those things, and none of it seemed to fit. She eventually stopped coming to see me, but I was really haunted by her because I hadn't been able to help her, and she really wanted me to help. And I had started out originally studying the behavioral ecology of Western meadowlarks, was my master's research was on. And I knew that some animals have to turn off eating in order to migrate. But as I thought about this, it suddenly occurred to me that if you were a forager in the Paleolithic and you were starving, what that would mean is that you needed to find food elsewhere or hunker down and try to hope that the migratory animals come back. Now, obviously, hunter-gatherers are always following the prey around, or going where the tubers, the roots, can be dug. But there must have been many times when humans were spreading out over the earth that they had come up against a mountain range or a desert or some barrier they couldn't keep going. And they had a choice to try to wait out the famine or mobilize their last reserves. Those individuals in the band who were already naturally high in self-control, not particularly food motivated, and were able to ignore fatigue and pain, would have been better able to maybe be the ones who decided to scout out looking for food for the band. So those are the traits in anorexia. So I started to think, well, maybe this explains these strange symptoms that are so strong for the person who has anorexia. I started to tentatively say to some clients, well, I think your body's trying to migrate. I think it's turned off eating and turned on movement, activity, energy. It made instant sense to people. They really got it. They really liked that idea. It made sense of their feelings. It was consistent with their experience. And it didn't blame their parents or them. This theory, which I call the adapted to flee famine hypothesis, helped to empower their loved ones to say, I know it's hard, but you can do it. I'm going to be here with you. I wrote an article proposing the adapted to flee famine hypothesis and giving the evidence for it in one of the best theory journals in psychology. And that was published in 2003. And I thought, okay, now my job is done. I've got this idea out here. I've shown all this evidence. As it happens, I hadn't counted on how resistant the dominant paradigm is to changing. What's been frustrating is how hard it's been to get this looked at by other people. I took advantage of every opportunity to give a talk about this. I started working for a CE company, giving workshops all over the country on treating eating disorders from an evolutionary perspective, or seeing them from an evolutionary perspective, and using that insight or that understanding in treatment.
Here's a few of the regulators that are the opposite of normal starvation.
The reason I've worked really hard to get this out is that it makes a huge difference to patients. It really helps. I don't think people can do it alone. At least I don't know anyone who has. You need loving support because you're fighting your own body.